the 1938 tube stock, the 1959 tube stock, the 1962 tube stock. While these trains carried a similar design aesthetic, in the late 1960s, a brand new stock for a brand new tube line will make its debut. And it will be unlike any tube train that came before it. This is the story of the Victoria Line's 1967 tube stock, London's first automated designer tube train. Hi, this is Jeffrey. So back in the 1960s, while the Victoria Line was under construction, its planners envisioned a new fleet of rolling stock unlike anything else that came before it. In 1964, London Transport hired a very well-known industrial designer to create this new fleet of trains. It's a really fascinating story, so let's get started in learning about the Victoria Line's 1967 tube stock trains. The Victoria Line. The first proposal for what would eventually become this tube line appeared in the County of London Plan, published in 1943. When London Transport finally received parliamentary approval to construct the line in 1962, planners recognized that the new underground railway required a radically advanced type of train to handle high-frequency, high-capacity commuter traffic. The 1960 stock, a small test fleet built for the Central Line, were 12 motor cars supplied by Cravens, and pairs were made up to 4 cars by the addition of 2 converted standard stock trailers. The trains were used as a test bed for automatic train operation. The Woodford to Hainault section of the Central Line was utilized for these successful tests in preparation for the introduction of the system on the Victoria Line when it opened. In 1964, Misha Black, who was a professor of industrial design at the Royal College of Art from 1959 to 75, was hired for a 12-year consultancy to the London Transport Executive. This would make his firm, the Design Research Unit, responsible for all aspects of design for the Victoria Line, including the rolling stock. This would make the new upcoming tube stock the first in the system's history to be shaped by a designer rather than solely by engineers. During March 1964, a £2.25 million order was placed with Metro Camel of Washwood Heath, Birmingham, to build 244 cars or 30.5 8-car trains of driving motors and trailers. In 1967, passengers were treated to a skewed mock-up of the new trains.
I just love the large windows and bright lighting of the 1967 mock-up.
And so, what would these new Victoria Line trains be? It was the 1967 tube stock. The aesthetic and structural design of the trains broke away from standard London Underground traditions. Visually, the driving motor cars featured a sleek, minimalist front profile dominated by distinctive wraparound cab windows, giving the drivers unprecedented visibility. The outer shell of these trains featured unpainted aluminum, which cut down on weight and eliminated the need for routine exterior painting. For passengers, the most striking innovation was the door design. The windows on the sliding doors were curved at the top, extending into the roof curvature. This allowed standing passengers to easily read station name signs on the platforms without bending down.
Welcome aboard the Victoria Line's 1967 tube stock.
What a beautiful new tube train this is.
The interior layout prioritized rapid loading and unloading, featuring wider standy areas and 2-tiered armrests. Underneath the aluminum alloy body shells lay the true revolution: automatic train operation, or ATO. The 1967 stock was engineered to run without continuous manual intervention. The trackside signaled instructions to the train via induction loops on the rails, which encoded speed commands directly into the train's electronic systems. The driver was reclassified as a train operator, whose primary responsibilities were to monitor the platforms, close the doors, and press two blue start buttons simultaneously.
The 1967 stock is wonderful to drive.
While the Montreal Expo Express, which opened in April of 1967, was the world's first automated railway, it lasted only 6 years. And so, the Victoria Line became the first permanent transport system to fully utilize ATO. The 1967 tube stock officially entered passenger service on February 21, 1968, on the Central Line's Hainault shuttle, which was testing automatic train operation. This was before the opening of the first section of the Victoria Line between Walthamstow Central and Highbury and Islington on September 1, 1968.
The new Victoria line is absolutely wonderful.
So clean and fast.
It is a masterpiece.
Now, let's take a look at some of the basic specifications of the original 1967 tube stock. Number 1, length of the driving motor car is 59 feet 9 inches, and the trailer car is 59 feet 5 inches, and each 4-car train was in a DM-TT-DM configuration. Number 2, width is 8 feet 8 inches. Number 3, height is 9 feet 5 1/4 inches. Number 4, weight of the driving motor is 28.5 tons and the trailer is 19.1 tons. Number 5, passenger capacity is 40 seats per driving motor and 36 seats per trailer. Theoretical crush capacity per 8-car train is 926. Number 6, traction motor is the LT115 DC motor of 4 per car from Crompton Parkinson Brush Traction. And finally, number 7, top speed is 50 miles per hour. On March 7, 1969, the line was extended to Victoria, a mere 7 years after parliamentary approval. Up to this time, the sectional openings had been accomplished without ceremony. However, for this extension, a special royal guest would be in attendance. Beatrice Davies, a public relations officer for London Transport in the 1960s, explains,
Queen Elizabeth II is in attendance to unveil this milestone. In a short inaugural journey, Her Majesty travels from Oxford Circus to Victoria. A special royal roundel is prepared, which will be affixed to the front of motor car 3052, which will eventually be preserved. The Victoria Line is ultimately named after Elizabeth's great-great-grandmother, and its route passes directly under Buckingham Palace.
The opening of the extension of the Victoria Line to Brixton on the 23rd of July, 1971 required additional trains, and a further 18 4-car units were built. From 1989 to 1995, the 1967 stock fleet underwent a major refurbishment by Tickford at the Rosyth Dockyard to update its look and mechanical systems. The unpainted aluminum exteriors were painted in the classic corporate red, white, and blue livery, and the interiors were completely refreshed.
I just love the maquette of the refurbished 1967 stock.
To expand fleet capability, 14 driving motors and 14 trailers were converted in 1987 to 1989 from Northern Line 1972 Mark I tube stock. A further 2 driving motors and 1 trailer were converted in 1995 to 1999. These carriages lacked ATO equipment and were used purely as non-driving intermediate carriages. By the late 2000s, the 1967 stock had served for over 4 decades. pushing mean distances between failures past 14,000 kilometers. The fleet was eventually replaced by the newer 2009 tube stock. The historic final passenger run for the 1967 stock took place on June 30th, 2011. About 11 fully intact carriages exist, some in engineering use and 2 are exhibits. Although the 1967 stock is now history, its own groundbreaking place in transport history is absolutely assured. And so there it is, the story of the Victoria Line's 1967 tube stock. Now, I know I do not have every single detail of the 1967 stock in this video because that would be just impossible to do. My main focus is the design and development of these trains because that's what I personally am interested in. Nor is this a history of the Victoria Line. So if you have any other interesting details about the 1967 stock, just let us know in the comments below. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the Victoria Line's 1967 tube stock trains. And as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.